All right, welcome Bunker Labs community. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Bunker Labs All-In Town Hall. And today we're going to talk about funding, strategy, and crisis navigation. My name is Jada Nickham, and I'm the Northeast Regional Experience Director, who also happens to be behind the scenes of a lot of our virtual events nationally. For those who have never attended a Bunker Labs digital event, welcome. And for those who have been joining us along the All-In journey, welcome back. The intention behind these conversations is to keep you inspired during these times and is to equip you with testimonies and firsthand knowledge, as well as give you the opportunity to connect with leading entrepreneurs and ask them questions directly. So today, to stay engaged, please use the Q&A box to ask questions, and I'll be keeping an eye on them today as we go through our conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today. She's actually been creating and curating all these virtual events for you guys, and she's also your community manager. So please welcome Liz Marion. Hey, Liz.
Hey, Jada, thank you so much. I am really excited actually to be facilitating this one. You see me a lot introducing these sessions and doing the behind the scenes tech and question answering. But I had to facilitate this one because I'm here to welcome a friend of mine back. You guys might remember we had a breakdown session with Keith Cyzen, the founder of the Everyday Inventor, who's also an attorney and brings that side of knowledge as well. And then also to bring his friend and partner, Kevin Harrington, here, who is, you might recognize him from Shark Tank. He was an original shark, but he was also a pioneer of the As Seen on TV initiative and movement. And I know you guys all know what that is. But for those of you who don't know Keith or didn't see his past breakdown, I'm going to just pass it to you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of breakdown or background.
Thanks for having me back. When I was on last time, we spent time talking about my grandfather who fought in World War II, Walter Cyzen, Purple Heart, born on the 4th of July, fantastic story. Was enlisted when he had 2 small children, including my father. But what I didn't get time to spend some time on was the story about Bruce Capel. And I live in Glen Ellen in the house that he grew up in. He is the roommate of Dick Butkus, or he was, I should say. And they played football at U of I. Dick obviously went on to the NFL, and Bruce went on to fight in Vietnam. Unfortunately, he was killed within 6 weeks, and he was trying to save some squadron members. And it's a bad story, but a story about his courage. And the town has always honored him. In fact, he's called a hitter at the local high school. And the amazing part about this is, well, when I went to buy the house, they said, you've got to maintain this flag, and they actually put it in my contract. So speaking of being a lawyer, and I laughed to myself, I said, I don't need a contractual provision to tell me to be American. Of course I would, honor him and keep the flag there. But then a couple of years later, his brother and his family reached out. They left a while ago and never came back to the house after the tragic result. And they spent about 2 hours with us, and it was a powerful moment for me and my family. We'll never forget it. And then they went to the football field at Glenbard West, and they dedicated a flagpole to him there. And so it was just a really powerful moment to be part of. And I'm mentioning this because when I first met Kevin, we were talking about Ever Let Charge, and we walked through that a little bit. But then, as you know, if you're going to be in business with someone, you have to get to know them. And we really started to connect on World War II, and I told him those stories. And Kevin's got a great story of his own.
Yes, thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. Yes, so my father was, when he was 18 years old, he enlisted in the Air Force. He wanted to fly, and so at that particular time in those days, I believe the requirement was a minimum of 25 flights, and then you served your time, and you were, that was your duty, and then you could go back home. But as he and the team of people that he was in Squadron 300, Fighter Squadron 314, and as he was in the process of getting his 25 missions finished. New kids are coming in, and they're getting shot down and having troubles. And make a long story short, he decided, well, I'm going to stay around. He stayed for 50 missions. He stayed for 75. His mother, my grandmother, was like saying, Charlie, you got to come home. And 150 missions later, and then actually I think the number was 165 that he ended up flying, and had an amazing camaraderie with a couple of the key guys that stayed for this period of time. So make a long story short, I'm very proud of he got shot down twice, once with a handgun from, because in those days they flew very low, and as they were strafing and things like that. So a handgun to a plane of, a few hundred yards off the ground, hit his fuel tank, boom, he was down in enemy territory. So very proud of my dad, an amazing man, and one of his comrades in the Air Force that stuck with him for the 160 some missions. He brought him back home, and he said, hey, there's nobody that I'd like to have marry my younger sister more than you. And he introduced them, and that he became my uncle. So God bless all of it. It was an amazing story from my father from World War II. So thanks for allowing me to share that, Keith.
I love that. That's a great story, and I just want to say thank you to both of you for the support of our community. Keith has been a friend of Bunker Labs, from Chicago, working with Todd, actually, founder of Bunker Labs, for a while, and bringing Kevin into this. And we love telling those stories, of course. And, something that Keith mentioned in our last interview was that, necessity being the mother of invention and the mother of innovation. And we're certainly potentially in one of those times now. And I definitely want to speak to that. And Keith last time spoke to that in war times, how, necessity has been the mother of invention for our military, and things that they're still implementing now. So first, though, I want to go to you, Kevin, just back, quickly. Can you just tell us about the feel that you're feeling right now for small businesses, what you're seeing, and your overall just kind of like insight on this and what people should be concentrating on?
Right. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I just maybe take 30 seconds to kind of go back and talk a little bit about how I got to where I am today. Go back to the early 80s. I had just ordered cable television, and I had 30 channels, and at ESPN, 24 hours of sports, and HBO movies, and MTV music. I got to channel 30. It was Discovery Channel. There was nothing there. And I called the cable company, and they said, Discovery's only an 18-hour-a-day channel. They don't have the budget. It's a new channel to produce 24 hours a day. So I went down, met with Discovery, cut a deal to start putting products on. And this was back in the early 80s. And these were infomercials. So that's why I'm often called the creator or the inventor of the infomercial. This was the early days, the early 80s, right? So we started doing kitchen products and the Food Saver, and then Jack LaLanne and the Juicer, and George Foreman, and make a long story, Tony Little and Fitness. I've been doing this now close to 40 years. I think it's 38 years, finding products, helping people get those products out to the marketplace, putting them on TV, retail distribution, Walmart, Target, Walgreens, CVS, et cetera. So I've been dealing with hundreds of in different entrepreneurs over the last 38 years. I also was one of the co-founders of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, in 1987. So I've been mentoring entrepreneurs for many years. And I just have to say that after getting that shot on Shark Tank, it was a very interesting experience for me, because it raised my visibility. And all of a sudden, I was not just getting a couple of calls a week, I was literally getting hundreds and then thousands of calls a week from entrepreneurs. So I've invested in over 500 companies. I have a lot of them that are holding on and doing good, some of them that aren't, and some that are just crushing it. So going way beyond what we expected. So I think one of the things that I would just say is that now is a time to reach out to, I've had mentors in my life. So I say, what we're doing here today is getting myself and Keith and a few of us together to talk about some things. And so reaching out to mentors in your life, possibly. If you don't have a mentor, you should. And I have 4 or 5 mentors in my life. I mean, I've been fortunate to have some pretty interesting folks that have given me some great advice. Zig Ziglar was one of them, Richard Branson being another one. So I'm reaching out to, Zig has passed away, but Tom Ziglar and I are very close. And so the bottom line is, it's a tough thing to do all by yourself in a vacuum. So the first thing is collaboration and getting together with other folks that can maybe give you some advice. And so for my situation, we were talking before we started, today I'll be on 5 of these virtual type summits. And I love doing this because I'm giving back to the entrepreneurial community. I don't get paid to do this. I just want to help entrepreneurs survive this crisis that we're all involved with. Sometimes it means you need to pivot. And so, one of the things as a product guy, 15 years ago, I had some tools that we were very successful with, the magic saw, the magic wrench, the magic hammer. And so now we said, wait a minute, people are at home. They're, 30 million, give or take, are unemployed. What are they doing at home? This is now, I think you said, it's the mother of invention is happening right now in the military, as well as folks and entrepreneurs that are at home, because they're experiencing things around the house, maybe because they're home all the time, that they didn't really realize. So we're getting an amazing flow from inventors. And so to get back to the wrench and the tools, said this is a time when people are doing things around the house because they are home. So we took these products back to QVC, magic wrench, magic saw, and we've done over $10 million in sales in a very limited run, just by bringing some things back from 15 years ago. So this is my pivot, focusing on products that might be more applicable for the work at home marketplace. This might be fitness, this might be housewares, this might be tools, like I said, do it yourself. So, it's funny, we deal with a lot of celebrities, and I was looking at Yahoo the other day, and Lionel Richie's daughter is Sophia Richie. And I just found this is something that she used, just changing her approach. Instead of selling her fashion, like, hey, this is fashion, I'll put this up and hopefully you can see this. It's her angle that she's approaching is, there she is, Sophia, work from home fashion. So now that is giving her a boost because she's pivoting her messaging to the people that are out there at home. So I know we got a lot of time to talk here. I don't want to take up too much on the front end, but the pivot is required, and don't be afraid to ask for some great advice from some people that you know and admire in your world.
And Kevin, thank you for making that point. I think the change in language and messaging, that's a different approach. That's not really a pivot in the, traditional way that we think of it, but it's pivoting the messaging, the language that you're using. And that plays into, if you did miss our panel actually on marketing and messaging yesterday, I encourage after that anecdote to definitely check that out. And Keith, you deal with inventors. All of your clients are inventors. So can you speak to what Kevin just said about that for the opportunities, and how you're suggesting and advising your clients to overcome these obstacles looking to the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Well, mine's a different angle or a twist here. The way we look at things at the Everyday Inventor is very in line with what Kevin is saying as far as team and collaboration. But we not only look at the product, we look deep into the business, how things were invented, and try to line up the life and hopefully the sale of a business versus the life and death of a business. So it all comes back to sort of tightening up the process, making sure your business is lined up, making sure you get a great team in place, but also trying to line up the funding and positioning this that not only are you trying to speak to a retailer or someone who will buy it down the road, but it's really the investor and their advisors. And that's the world that I've lived in, being a lawyer for almost 25 years, doing M&A in the financial institutions market. It's just things that we don't identify right now and deal with will cause problems down the road. So if you look at the backdrop of COVID and pivoting, Ours really isn't a pivot. It just makes it a little bit more intense, a little bit more of a stress test at the beginning. And I think ultimately it helps people because we do have more time on our hands. We can be more innovative. We can, work on our team, but it's ultimately about making that pitch for investors. Now, as to the actual product, like Kevin said, there's certain products that are going gangbusters, others that need some help. And in my world, it always comes back to what are the funders, the investors, the family offices, the banks going to do? So if someone asked me, should we launch now? I said, do you have the funding and do you have the team in place? And, I'm going to assume the product's been tested and all these other things. And our platform looks at those, but it's a piece of the puzzle for us that's very, very front loaded. So we stress people, do a stress test. No one likes to hear that, but I figured let's do it now in the comfort of our homes and then see what the life of the business is going to be. Then we're going to go amazingly fast and get connected to people throughout the platform, including the Kevin Harringtons of the world.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And one of the things that I wonder for early stage entrepreneurs, and Keith, I might just kick this back to you. And then, Kevin, comment, obviously, because you've been dealing with and working with entrepreneurs, for a long time, is that these early stage entrepreneurs, so a lot of our Bunker Labs community, which Keith knows, and Kevin, you might not, is that we have this program, Launch Lab Online, which is our online digital community. And what we really say about that program is it's idea to first invoice. So these are very early stage entrepreneurs. And a lot of their challenges and questions have been, I was planning to launch the next 2 months. Should I still launch? And then should I continue? And then one of the questions that always comes up is, should I go back to getting a full-time job to then fund my dream through, so that I can launch in the 6 to 12 months in recovery? So Keith, have you had experience with, people hesitating to launch their products now, or go through the process and spend the money? What are you seeing from your entrepreneurs that are early stage?
Just for me, or
it's a little bit all.
Oh, for Keith first, and then I'm going to pass it to Kevin for sure. Kevin, I want to hear your advice as well.
So yeah, I give the more, the boring side of the stuff, the meat and potatoes, and then Kevin takes from there and he can sell the product. But so I would say, what we're seeing is a lot of people are more interested in really just immediately trying to sell their product. And we're going back and saying, let's assume that could happen. And bringing you through this sort of analysis, and even it's in an algorithm, and we take you through, here's how, if X, Y, and Z happen, here's how things are going to look. And then we start to take experts from, engineering, manufacturing, and give you that view at the beginning and let you take that information and start, going from there. And then we plug in, other team members.
And you ready for me, Liz? You want me to talk?
Oh yeah, I'm passing it off to you, Kevin. Go for it. I saw your energy. You want to answer this one?
Well, yeah. So we deal with a lot of early stage folks, and one of the things that we try to do is we try to get an analysis of the proof of concept. And so there's two ways we can do that. We use some crowdfunding techniques where we go into a list of many tens of thousands of people, and so we can put a product that's never been launched. It can be in prototype form. It doesn't have to be manufactured. And I call this, I use the term test before you invest. And I don't mean before you invest a penny or a dollar, but before you invest big money for sure. So we can put something on a crowdfunding platform, put it out there, and see, based on the results, we can tell you whether that's going to have a good chance of raising a lot of money through crowdfunding. And after we get that test done, we now have that test. And so now, if it's positive, we can either invest or go raise the money to support that launch. So this is one of the key things that we try to get to the bottom of as early as possible. And this involves the customer acquisition, and there's something that we call a CAC, C-A-C, and this is kind of a marketing term, but it's a customer acquisition cost. So if we can identify early on a customer acquisition cost and it fits a model financially that from the customer acquisition to the cost of goods, et cetera, then when somebody comes to me and says, I ran some ads on Facebook and Instagram, and I've got a $50 product, and I was able to get a customer for $15. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. You now have proof of concept because you can now turn that dial, get more customers at $15. You're making a profit. You got $50 in revenue, minus your $15 for the acquisition, minus the cost of goods and other minor costs to ship it, et cetera. But if somebody brings me those results, I want to invest in that business because they have tested before they invested, shown me that it's going to work, and now it's an easier investment for me. So focusing in this world of testing is very powerful. And I will say this, right now, there's 30 million unemployed people. Many people are at home. Well, if they're at home, what are they maybe doing? They may be watching television. They may be on their internet. So there is a massive increase in viewership and people going to websites, but advertising has plummeted because the restaurants are closed and the concert promoters are closed and all this kind of stuff. So you've got this huge opportunity right now for entrepreneurs to be able to go to the TV networks, the radio stations, the internet channels, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. Rates are dropping big time. So I had a product that we were running an $18 customer acquisition. We now have been retesting it now with some of the lower costs, and we're down under $5 to get that customer, something that 2 months ago was $18. The reason being, there's more people watching TV, more people on the internet, and we're not competing against as many advertisers because advertisers have bailed. So now is the time to hunker down and get those customers acquired, get your testing done, and find out if you've got a proof of concept.
Those are great points, and I'm taking notes, so I'll recap for everybody at the end. Don't worry. And one of the things, this is related to that, right? Which is, a lot of people are concerned about protecting their ideas. And Keith, we talked about this a little bit last time, but protecting your ideas is still paramount. But also talking about your ideas and getting it out there for that proof of concept to make sure that you have a customer that's going to buy that product. So how has that changed, or has it right now? And what should people be doing to get the message of their product out? And Keith, I'll just pass it to you to talk, about the IP protection. And then Kevin, we can, talk to you about that messaging and when you start talking about your product to new customers.
Right. I think this is a good segue. After listening to Kevin, you can tell how, how passionate he is about, the product and the numbers. And what we do on the other end is connect, sort of the same thing to get us to the point where, Kevin can get the proof of concept done. And, having invented a few things and gone through the ringer in this whole process, like I can truly help people and walk them through this because, protecting your idea is the most important thing. And I'll just tell you what we see out there. A lot of times you'll ask in a due diligence request, do you have a patent? And a lot of people will check the box, yes. But we really dive into how strong that patent is. We use an outside law firm, Marshall & Gernstein. And the importance of that is to make sure that the product that you're pitching or selling or handing off to Kevin is protected by that patent, right? If you have a patent, what we're seeing is you then have some confidence. You file that thing away, and I even did it myself. And I said, great, I have a patent. And I showed some friends. It's nice and shiny, you put it away. And now you start developing, but you're going to be around experts that are going to tell you to change this, tweak this. And a lot of times you're not going back to that patent attorney. You're talking to a manufacturer, an engineer, and they're not connected. 9 out of 10 patented products we're seeing have walked themselves out from the protection of the patent, just because of the scenario I just said. There's all these improvements to that patent attorney a year ago. They were very significant, but no one wants to talk about that or cares about it. Why does that matter? Because I'm talking about the valuation of the business. Like once it's sold and Kevin can show you how much we can make, I'm there at the beginning sort of protecting is the underlying business and its property, the IP in place. So later on down the road, when you want to sell your business, make sure that patent's worth something, expand your patent portfolio. What I'm seeing, a lot of times you don't have inventors where the light bulb went on one time and they invented one thing. These are innovative people and they have a lot of related ideas. And so we work with them early. I want to partner with you on your second innovation and your third innovation and feed them into the line of product sales and retailers and things like that. So we're, again, more focused on the front end of it, but it's all about the value. And a lot of times we'll do valuations of the overall business so that you know how to negotiate with people down the road. And, you know, one thing too, I wanted to explain, there are people think of licensing and then selling your business, and that seems to be the spectrum, right? But what we're finding is, especially in these times where people are afraid to launch or are afraid to sell a product, you know, in certain channels, they have to know that there are more options than just licensing. If you could go back in time and license your product and make some money, and you didn't really want to run a company and be a CEO for 8 years, you know, you wish you could make that decision there because it's on someone else's dollar, their effort, and you have a nice check coming in, hopefully. Versus someone who thinks, listen, I've got to be the CEO and sell this company in 5 to 8 years, but it may not be working out. And so what happens, we see a lot of inventors move along for a couple of years, they're selling a product and they're just burned out. And they think our only option is to take the licensing agreement. And that's not the case. That's when you get the worst deal presented to you and you might make some pennies on the dollar, but that's it. So we're showing people there are different variations, and that goes to my M&A experience, seeing all types of deals, that we teach you about those deals in between with the goal, of course, selling it. But if you invent other things and protect it properly, let's have some talks about a strategic partner versus bringing in a VC. Or, you know, or there's certain times you license certain of your products and move on with others. So that's where our strength is. We're gonna, at the Everyday Inventor, we're gonna take you through all those scenarios. And regardless of how you come out, you're going to be in a better position, and that also advantages the Kevin Harringtons of the world and the investors because you know you have a higher valuation, you have a tighter team, you've definitely collaborated, which is key to Kevin's process that he mentioned.
Absolutely. That's great. And Kevin, you know, to you about getting the idea of your product out there and the messaging, which I'm sure, you know, you've perfected over the time since the 80s for the infomercials, which we still see, you know, on TV daily.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so we deal with lots of people, and I think many times folks are not as sophisticated as they should be because they've invented something. Maybe they've got a patent application, and now they start sharing it. They need to get manufacturing, so they start sharing things with lots of people. I've seen people actually get ripped off by relatives of theirs. Okay, so you almost can't trust anybody, right? And so one of the, you know, and Keats as a lawyer, he can talk more about this if we needed to, but I always like to see like non-circumvent kind of agreements where, you know, if I'm going to introduce you to somebody, you agree that you're not going to go around me to them and cut me out. And this can be with manufacturers, with distributors. There's all kinds of things. I mean, there's many, many knockoffs out there in the world today, and lots of dishonest and folks that you wouldn't want to do business with that are out there to rip you off. So you want to protect yourself, and that's why having a good legal kind of game plan and the kind of stuff that Keith does is very important.
That's great. Yeah. And so we do have a lot of questions from the audience, which we are definitely going to get to. So I don't want anybody to worry, we're not going to get to your question. We are. I do want to ask though, you know, to the messaging, and Kevin, I'm going to throw this to you first. So right now, we had a town hall on Tuesday with 2 military spouse entrepreneurs, the founders of Instant Teams, which is now, you know, I remember we were friends when they started in 2014, and now they're a multi-million-dollar company, you know, providing remote teams for companies. And they just did, a round and raised money through COVID, their biggest round yet, that they talked about on Tuesday. But, and they said it's an opportunity, that virtual pitching has changed the game, but it's also an opportunity because you don't have to knock down the door, so to speak. So what is your advice for people approaching the virtual pitching, for finding opportunities like that? And, maybe to your point also of finding mentors, finding people to talk to through this, this new environment. What is that opportunity like for entrepreneurs?
So I'll talk about the pitching, because I've taken tens of thousands of pitches over the years, and I'll sit there. I go to the houseware show, the hardware show, fitness show, golf show, toy fair. I used to, right? There's no trade shows right now, but I love going to the shows, and I'll sit at a houseware show and I'll take 100 pitches in a day, right? And so. Now, that's face-to-face. That's a little different than virtual. In a virtual pitch, the first thing that you have to do, and I've created like a 10-step formula for pitching. The first thing, if you don't get their attention, especially in a virtual environment, they may be distracted, they're doing something else. You really have to connect with them on the front end so that they're listening. Now, it isn't just, hey there, listen to me. Sometimes you have to do something. It creates that attention getter. And then I like to look for other things. So once you get their attention, I like start with some kind of a problem that you're going to solve. So get their attention, start with a problem. Now tell them how your product, your service, your business solves that problem in a unique fashion. And let me explain it this way. Does your business, product or service, solve the problem unlike any other product or service in that arena? So that's what investors look for, unique positioning. And now one last tip, we don't have time for all 10, but in a virtual environment, if you're able to utilize the power of a presentation that might come up on the screen, I like to see magical transformations of some type, whether they be before and afters, testimonials. And here I'm getting back to my infomercial roots, but almost every infomercial we ever did, and we did 700 of them, we would use some kind of a transformative process, because you've got a problem. I'm going to show you how we're going to solve it. Here we're solving it. Now look at what we've done, the before and the after. So classic examples, proactive, a beauty product. You can get amazing results before and after with the acne treatment. So Tony Little's fitness products, before and after weight loss, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just a couple tips, get their attention, solve a problem, solve it uniquely, use visuals, use demonstrations, and use magical transformations.
I love that phrase, magical transformation. I wrote it down because I definitely want to remember that, as we're talking to entrepreneurs as well, that's so important, and thinking about all the messaging that we've seen or commercials that we've seen. What is that magical transformation? Absolutely. So I do want to go, I think we lost Keith for just a second, but I'm sure he'll be back. Okay. But I want to go to some of our questions from our audience before we talk about something really exciting that I know we've shared that Keith and Kevin are partnering on, but I want to share that at the end so everybody can figure out about the opportunity. But one of the questions from an anonymous attendee was, what, in your opinion, Kevin, what made EO so successful?
So that's a great question. It was 1987. I was hanging out with some young entrepreneurs. Michael Dell was hanging out there, and Vern Harnish, and another guy by the name of Ted Leonsis. Ted owns the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards, and he was a big number 2 guy at AOL when he sold his company there. But we said, hey, we need to get a group together that can share and mentor entrepreneurs, because we've all made a lot of mistakes. Let's share those mistakes. So we created EO. But I'll tell you that the most powerful thing that EO did is that when you become a member of EO, you get to be a member of a forum, and that's spelled FORUM. The forum is and so you get this group of members of EO that become unofficial business advisors. And the forum meets once a month, and there's there's EO forums that have been happening for 27 years with the same groups month after month after month. And imagine, when I started talking about mentors and getting a mentor, this is that process inside of EO. Is if your forum has 8 people, and you're one of the 8, that's like having 7 mentors, and giving you, on a monthly basis, sharing your problems and the solutions and how you can overtake it. So I think that ultimately was one of the most powerful things that EO did. Oh yeah, they do monthly meetings and they do quarterly get-togethers and they do annual global events. It's a networking organization, very, very powerful, but the forum gives you your board of advisors and a team of mentors to help you on a monthly basis.
Yeah, that's great. So, and those ingredients, and like he's saying that you're actually getting mentors within that group of advice, like similar to what we call our CEO circle, which is a group of 10 entrepreneurs that are now meeting virtually. So taking that beyond the borders of states and cities. And so another question is, and I think this is probably a very common question, is at what point in product development and R&D am I ready to connect with someone like Kevin Harrington or Keith Cyzen about my product, and well-established business developers to connect the inventors in need, so what they need for their invention in product development. So at what point are they ready to meet with one of you?
Well, I know Keith can address the legal side, but on the product side, I'd say right away, or as soon as you come up with the idea, because number one, if somebody calls me, I want to make sure they get a good lawyer that can protect them, and that's key. So I've seen other lawyers, bill out tens of thousands of dollars on something that was never going to get a patent. So, deal with people that are honest and trustworthy, but that's why I like to come in at the very beginning and look at what is the goal here, and let's get the right manufacturing company. We've made virtually every kind of consumer good product, as I talked about, from housewares to hardware to fitness to golf, etc. So don't go, factories, I've seen folks, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in tooling and manufacturing, and they didn't do it the right way. So just don't get taken advantage of. We're in the business of helping people, guiding people, and we've been doing this a long time. We've seen a lot of ups and downs. So we say connect with us as early on as possible. And Keith, from a legal standpoint, I'm sure you would probably agree with that also. Are you still there, Keith?
I think
Keith's having some technical issues.
Let me see if Keith, can you hear us? Well, we'll come back. I'll remind him of the question.
Okay. But it's good to get a good lawyer on the front end, because they can save you a lot of time and money, and they don't, Keith is the kind of guy that looks globally at the big picture. And so just like we do.
Absolutely. Very important also to look at the whole market. And some people are only looking domestically, which I found, when I was first starting to learn about product development, was you can't just focus domestically. You have to focus on the global market as well. And someone else, Taylor, actually asked that you mentioned crowdfunding platforms that you've used before. And can you tell us which platforms those were and some examples of the crowdfunding platforms?
Yeah. So one of the platforms that I recommend is called Launch Boom. And they've got major success with raising a lot of money for products. And this is what I love about Launch Boom. There's a ton of crowdfunding people out there that will, give you a proposal and take your money, right? Launch Boom, they have a testing platform that they want to put you through, sort of this proof of concept first, very, very reasonably budgeted, but they're going to go out to a list, and they don't want to spend a lot of time and money if they don't get a great feedback and from this initial kind of proof of concept test that they do, sort of a test before you invest. So you don't have to go spend tens of thousands of dollars launching something. They have this pre-test phase where they can put the information out, and there is a charge for this, but it can ultimately save you a lot of time and money and aggravation in the end run. So that's a personal recommendation that I have. I know the principals there. They're good people, and they've had a lot of success, because now if you do test successfully, they're going to want to run real fast to go put your product out in front of millions, where they've maybe only shown it to thousands. So it's test before you invest, and then roll it out after you get that successful test.
Yeah, the test before you invest, I mean, it's easy to remember, and I think everybody can, we talk about that in Launch Lab Online as well, that the solution is the most important problem, that it's a solution and it's a problem that people want to solve, right? So, Kevin, Chris asked, talking about products a lot, but I'm curious how this process that you go through to get proof of concept also might apply to a service-based businesses. What are the significant differences, but how is it similar?
Well, any business is needing customers, right? And so whether you're a service business, I'm involved right now with a roofing company that has a very unique new patented roofing process. Unbelievable. This company started in 2018, and in middle of 2018, 2019, they did $6 million in sales from a dead start. They have 240 dealers already. And this, I'm talking about a company that's less than 2 years old, right? But it's because of the unique patented service that they offer. Okay, they're not a product company, it's a service company. And so, make a long story short, as I'm looking at what they're doing, they're highly focused on customer acquisition, lead generation. They create leads and sell the leads to their dealers. So whether I'm selling a product or I'm generating a lead to get a new roofing customer, I need to focus on customer acquisition. And we start by shooting amazing videos. We like to go on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest and LinkedIn and create amazing short form videos. I'm not talking 30-minute videos like you have, like an infomercial. I'm talking short form, because on the internet, people aren't going to listen to a 30-minute pitch on the front end, right? There are processes you can get them to do that, but you have to put them through different channels. So anyway, again, getting back to service businesses, how do you get customers? And now let's dial it in. Let's look at your creative. Like we showed a little bit of a pivot in the creative that was happening before. And I'm going to say one other thing too that's been very, very powerful for us. This is a company that I've been involved with now for a number of years. It's not an old company. It's called Celsius. It's an energy drink, healthy kind of product. Now, this is a product company, but we are not doing as seen on TV with this. We're using social media influencers. And this is the pivot here, is that this is a product geared towards fitness people, because it's a healthy energy drink that burns calories when you drink it. So the pivot for us for customer acquisition is to get hundreds of fitness influencers who are talking to their followers. And this is a new thing that I say new. It's a number of years now that we've been doing this, but not 10 years. This is relatively new in the last couple of years, to be able to use the power of social media influencers. And again, that's a pivot on the marketing for us with this particular product.
Absolutely. And not to reveal too much, but I definitely drink Celsius drinks.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And a military spouse fitness influencer, actually, that is in our network, is one of the influencers that was one of the original Celsius people that got behind it. So that's awesome to hear, and I love that you pulled that product, especially having military spouse influencers involved with it. So that's great.
If there's any influencers that are looking to do more influencing with Celsius, we can help put them in touch with the right folks, because it's an amazing product. And while during all these tough times right now, Celsius, 50% of the stores have been closed, but Celsius did not decline in sales. So this, this is pretty powerful, that even though the number of stores is down, people are still buying their Celsius because of the influencing marketing that we're doing.
Absolutely. And we definitely have a few people, Juan Biddix and Mike Sedman, I'm looking at you. So that would be fitness influencers. So as we're coming up on time, so we did have a question about what are the good ingredients, and this goes perfectly into our last topic that I want to talk about, the bracket challenge. Is what are the best ingredients for collaboration when you start working with a partner, and how do you determine whether or not it's the right partner to work with when you start working with somebody, and then that could be a business relationship?
Yeah.
So how did you and Keith decide that you were good to collaborate with each other and partner on something together?
I think it's a great question. I think Keith's coming back here, but I'll start. So one of the things I always like to find out is I want to see references and examples of success. When people come to me and they say, okay, Kevin, so, tell me about some of the products you've done. Well, we did the Tony Little Gazelle, the AB Isolator, the Jack LaLanne Juicer, and Billy Mays, and we did Kris Jenner's first product and a stair climbing device, and we did 50 Cent's headphones. And so, I can give you hundreds of examples of products, some that did 100 million, some that did 500 million. The Gazelle did over $1 billion in sales, that one item. We've worked with George Foreman, et cetera. So I'm an easy one to check out because I'm visual. I'm out there, and I was on Shark Tank. But if you're dealing with somebody that's not so out there in the marketplace, you want to check those references. Find out what they had to do with it, because I was at a trade show once and I meet a guy and I said, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I do infomercials. And you've probably seen that guy, Tony Little. I'm the guy behind Tony Little. And I'm like, I called him out on it, and he came back and apologized and said, well, you caught me at a bad moment. I'm sorry. I was kind of stretching the truth a little bit. I know who you are, and I know you're the guy that did that, and I apologize. But it's amazing how people will not tell the truth all the time. So check the references, see what they've done, and what are their skill sets, and just don't take it verbatim. So Keith's back now, so I'm going to let him talk about Teddy, because this is really near and dear to him, and good timing to have him back.
Hey, Keith. Let's see. Oh, there you are.
Usually it's my 5 children tying me up and carting me off, and I can blame them for things, but just having some connectivity issues here. So sounds like it's a good time to come back.
Yes, no problem. We just got through some of our audience questions. But Keith, so I just wanted, before we wrap up, I want to talk about, we were just talking about the good ingredients of a good partnership and good collaboration. So I want to first, or lastly, just ask you essentially, let's talk about the Teddy bracket. We have shared it with our community. We'll continue to share it as it's going on. But tell us about it, and tell us about the collaboration that you and Kevin have going on, and what the challenge is and how people can enter.
Yeah, I think it's it's a really exciting concept, and COVID's done a lot, taken a lot away from us. And if you look at March Madness, I mean, I can't remember missing a game over the last 20 years. And you just sort of look back and say we went from our lives, if you were interested, sort of weaving around that and trying to work and have your family, to never having it all. And with what Kevin mentioned early on, we have people, unfortunately, at home wanting to innovate. So we're trying to bring that feel back of March Madness in this Inventors Madness. And we have the brackets, they're filling up. And
college March Madness, right, Keith? The NCAA, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have that concept of 64 inventions going head to head. And it's going to end with the fundable 4, where Kevin will pick, the winner to move on, and then finally to the champion chip, which will be at a Masters event, Masters golf event, of course. And it's just been a great way for people to get in touch with us and get excited. And we have an overwhelming response to that. And we have about 3 weeks before the brackets are filled, and then we're going to launch from there. So it's going to be pretty neat and exciting, and you'll be seeing more about that as we move along.
That's great. And it's really exciting. And you guys might have seen this. We actually put it in our newsletter a couple of weeks ago about the bracket. And, Keith was encouraging our veteran and military spouse inventors and entrepreneurs to definitely enter. So Kevin, kind of last word on that to you. What do you think? And what are you excited about this bracket?
I love competition. So when when you watch, I love basketball and the NCAAs. 64 teams down to the Final Four. It's so competitive, and people are able to get the word out through social media, because part of it is how you engage with others out in the marketplace and giving them a chance to come and give comments about your product also. So we're going to start with 64 inventors. It's going to get whittled down to 32, down to 16, down to 8, down to 4, and then we're going to have a winner. So I just love that competition, and I think we're going to. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing the winners that come out of that. But I will also tell you this: just because maybe you didn't make even the first cut from 64 to 32, it doesn't mean you don't have something that somebody like myself or somebody's interested in. So we really tune into every single opportunity that's going to be coming into the Teddy Bracket Challenge. And from my side, there's many, many deals that we have the ability to turn people onto. We can do video spots. We can put them into retail stores. We can take them to shopping channels, QVC, Home Shopping Network, global distribution, etc. So, it's an exciting time. And I think as we come out of the quarantine situation and start to loosen up the communities, we're going to be having more and more time to spend one-on-one with inventors and helping them make their dreams a reality.
That's great. I love that. And just if you weren't on our breakdown with Keith, you might not know that Teddy, TEDI, stands for the Everyday Inventor, which is the company that Keith founded. And it is, Jada actually just dropped a link in the chat. So I definitely encourage all of you to go check it out. As soon as you go to that website, it pops up for the bracket challenge. So just a little bit of a recap that I want to say for our entrepreneurs. So proof of concept, test before you invest, which I love. What is your customer acquisition cost? Again, if you missed our panel from yesterday, they talked a lot about that. That's a great, tactical conversation about that customer acquisition cost. And then the opportunity in advertising right now that Kevin pointed out and Keith talked about, look into that right now. There's, advertising has plummeted, so maybe there's a chance for other entrepreneurs. And then Keith talking on that, protecting your idea, the due diligence, really working with people that you trust, especially those attorneys that Kevin mentioned. Kevin and Keith, thank you both so much. We really appreciate you, giving this time to our military connected entrepreneur community. And we really love having you as thought partners. So thanks so much. Jada, back to you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Liz, as well, for moderating and for facilitating such a great conversation. Like she said, we learned a lot today about marketing, mentorship, partnership, and hopefully we've equipped you guys with great knowledge and information on how you can navigate your businesses during this time. So virtual round of applause for everyone. And thank you so much to everyone tuning in today. Thank you for joining us for another town hall. To stay connected with Bunker Labs, you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and we're gonna actually be uploading this conversation onto all those outlets as well. And if you have any questions for our team, you can email us at townhall@bunkerlabs.org. And we'll see you guys at our next virtual event. Stay safe and stay all in. Thank you, everyone.
And I do see more questions, which I will send to Keith and Kevin after this, or we'll find an answer for you if it's a resource ask.
There we go. Great being here. Thanks, everybody. Good
Thanks.
job.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kevin. Bye.